Good morning, Marina.
Well, good morning and thank you very much for joining us. I am Yori Folani. Hope we meet you well. The presidential jet seizures, that's what is trending now. So our turn to look at it on the program. As you know, we've been on a rolling coverage, but time to get our viewers at this particular hour to be able to weigh in on the matter. And our guest is Mr. Curtis Adigba. He's a lawyer and public affairs analyst. Do I need to say? He's very, very well known to our viewing public. Thank you as always. But I was just commenting before we came on, say, you've become a stranger because the last time we sort of jammed together was back in the political season era.
Yes.
Yes, but here we are now. I don't know if we're done with politics yet.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you very much.
Well, politics is our daily stable. It never comes to an end.
So, Zhongshan Fusheng, if I'm saying it right, that's the French, that's the Chinese company that we have a disagreement with, and according to all the documents, it's the French courts have actually detained three presidential planes in France.
Now two.
Two.
They released one.
Now, even that one is still embarrassing. Thank you very much for that, by the way. But even that is embarrassing because let's look at the matters arising from this embarrassing affair. Because any way you look at it, it's an embarrassing affair. Give me your read of how we got here, because we have to have administrators. Initially, I had said that, what is it with our lawyers? But then I remember that if a lawyer is not briefed, he's not briefed. He doesn't know anything about it. Were the lawyers briefed in time? Is this the fault of the lawyers? Did they do a shoddy job? Is it the fault of our administrators? Is it the fault of Ogun State government? Is it the fault of the federal government? So, or is it even a matter of finding fault wherever it is due? Is that the issue? What should we be looking at going forward so that we don't have this kind of an embarrassment again?
Unfortunately, you do not have a system that can prevent this kind of embarrassment in the future. Because the system that we operate is insensitive to things like this. You know, we're used to the fact that in our own judicial system, you can murder people and get away free with it, especially if you have political power.
Yes, in a manner of speaking.
And you're enjoying some level of immunity in the local system.
Yes, but that is not a thorough fact. You're just, it's hyperbolic.
Yes.
To emphasize.
So that people understand how bad the situation is. Because when you look at the history of this extant case, you will find out that there had been opportunities time and time again that this could have been nipped in the bud. But
we weren't taking action.
The dramatics personnel didn't think it was an important issue that should take their time. Because you also understand that sometimes in 2021, there was an arbitration in London on this very issue. That arbitration was presided by the President of the UK Supreme Court. It made an award. Representatives from Ogun State government were there. And I also want to believe that Nigeria sent a representative. That's why it's called an arbitration. The parties sat down and the arbitrator gave a judgment, $75.4 million. And not a dime has been paid. We have not heard about the appeal, if there was provision for an appeal from arbitration. Everybody just went quietly away, leaving these guys to plot their next move. And this is what we are seeing as the embarrassment.
Even when the judgment was given against us, against the defendants, which was Nigeria, Ogun State government, where the federal government comes into all of this is that it, by default, is the guarantor, isn't it?
Yes.
Of any of these kind of laws.
Because in international law, subnational government cannot sign international agreement without the federal government providing a cover. It's like the CBN going to sell treasury bills. They are using the sovereignty of Nigeria as security or collateral. So this is what happened. And now the reason why they have gone for the juggler of the federal government is because they feel that they are in the position to pay this money.
Yes.
Because they can pay and then deduct this money from Ogun State FARC allocations over the months, okay? Or just pay and then deal with Ogun State.
It seems that there were lapses all over. Even the federal government doesn't seem to have its own watchdog over affairs. The Ogun State must have known that it was defaulting. This, again, people that are hearing about this action now, some might think that it's a recent matter, but it's a long-standing matter. It goes back to the time of then Governor Gbenga Daniel, now Senator. And after that, there was another governor, Amosun, and right until we have Governor Abiodun now. So this is a matter of long-standing. And I don't understand how somebody wasn't even able to blow the whistle that, look, time is passing and we are now in serious, not just default, serious default.
Okay, so I think here's the problem. First and foremost, the people that were involved in this don't even see it as a problem, and they still don't see it as a problem. So let me give you a brief background of what has happened.
Sure.
I think it was sometimes in 2003 that the idea to set up a trade zone, like you have the Lagos trade zone, with a Chinese company started. But it wasn't until 2007 that that contract was signed. Okay, the original contractor was subsequently substituted with this current company. Now, the argument for terminating the contract was that they got an information from the Chinese embassy, the commercial department of the Chinese embassy in Lagos, that this company was not registered by them and therefore was not authorized to do business in Nigeria. That was the basis for which this thing was cancelled. But then it raises so many questions. The prominent of this is that who carried out the due process?
The due diligence.
Yes. Due diligence, who went to search this company. If the same commercial department of the Chinese embassy can write to you saying, we don't recognize this company, why was it difficult in the first place for those who entered into this agreement to go to the same place to say, who are we dealing with from your country? Do they have the capacity, or do they have your imprimatur? Or are there people we can deal with? Why was that not done? Now, you didn't do that. Of course, in every contract, you have exit clauses. If this doesn't happen, this happens. Why did they not follow that? Because you see, when they went to court in Nigeria here, their prayer was to say they want to be brought back to the contract and for the contract to continue. But at some point, they felt that it was dragging too long and they were not likely to get justice. So they terminated the suit here and they went abroad and started the process of arbitration. So it's been long in coming to this point. It just didn't happen. But look, when you listen to the guys that were involved in this, Amosun had said, former governor has said, look, we terminated it because this was a fraudulent company. They made a misrepresentation to us. And when we found out, we decided to terminate it. Yeah. But was that the basis for terminating? Did you write to them saying so? Did you work around the contract to see that the exit clauses were followed in terminating this contract?
Because these are the legal questions that will be asked. These are the ones that you're tripping out now. Yeah. And we had senior lawyers in there. We had senior lawyers on the Nigerian part. We had senior lawyers in there in all of this time. And I just don't know. A lot of Nigerians are just watching and hoping that maybe the lawyers can help us sort it out. It can't be, or can it? Can it be that the legal team was so slack, so lacking in professionalism?
No, I wouldn't agree with you.
I'm saying, I'm casting around.
Lawyers take their cue from the hiring party. Lawyers are not going to employ themselves and go ahead to do a brief for a client. And even if you come back as a lawyer from arbitration and you say to your client, this is the judgment of the arbitration. We have to pay this amount of money.
Yes.
And the client says, no, we're not going to pay. What are you going to do? The lawyer is not going to pay from his pocket. You understand? Now, recall that this is not an isolated incident.
Because if we say, if for instance, in this example you've just given, it doesn't necessarily have to refer to this particular case. But if the principal, if the client, if the client says, we're not paying, I'm not paying upon being reported.
There's nothing the lawyer can do.
And therefore, that means that the person, the principal, has given up, pursuing that case.
Yes. And again, you must...
Technically, that's what it means.
You must also understand that as a country, we're lastminute.com people.
Yes.
We don't want to put out the fire before it degenerates. You understand? Or it sprays around. We want to go big on putting out the fire when we could have stopped it completely. Recall the case of P and ID.
P and ID.
Of course, I mean, there were several opportunities that the issue could have been dealt with, but we waited until it got to a head. And then the government had to fight so hard, spend so much money to pull us out of it. And I believe that this was an issue that could have been dealt with, quickly, I understand. Even if you had agreed with the arbitration panel, to say, okay, we agreed with the judgment, we agree with the judgment, but this is how long it would take us to pay the money. And you started paying, or commence legal proceedings that will set aside the arbitration if the agreements, had clauses that says, if you are not satisfied with arbitration, you can challenge it.
Yeah.
But they didn't do any of this.
And this is the uncanny part of it, as you are saying. Even where a judgment is obtained against us, you can still approach the tribunal look, there must be a way out, whatever. There must be a way out.
You can even seek for a political solution or a diplomatic solution. Because if the amount granted to them was, and they face is a clear situation where they are not going to be able to recover anything at all. If you offer them something lower and you're willing to pay, they would have accepted that.
That's what a lot of
and what you are seeing,
people are saying.
Yeah, what you are seeing right now, they got an interim order to impound three of our jets, federal government jets. One of them happened to be the newest aircraft, the Airbus 330. And from what we are hearing is that they decided that one of the aircraft should be released, so that the president can use it to travel. That itself is telegraphic. I mean, it's sending a message that they're seeking for reconciliation, So I think there are still opportunities to be able to resolve this issue amicably if we are serious. Because when I read the response from the federal government, a statement issued by Bayo Onanuga, it was like, oh, these are predatory foreign entity always trying to rip off the country. It didn't even address the issue that got us to where we are,
Okay, sorry about that. When it is because we have entered into treaties that make us part of the Community of Nations that we have this situation, because there must be order, there must be rules of engagement. Otherwise, nobody will deal with us. We can't be isolated. Can we change anything going forward? Trying to learn from this particular experience. Of course, the ordinary thing to say is that we need to be a lot more orderly in our processes. That would be the simplistic, logical way. Is there anything Nigeria can do, for example, so that we don't have this kind of a situation in future? Does our constitution allow that, governments are not going to be able to get us into this mess anymore because we simply won't guarantee any loans?
Well, that's not a constitutional issue, but what I can tell you is that this is where the office of the Attorney General Federal Attorney General comes into play powerfully, because it's the legal clearinghouse of the government. So if the federal government is going to stand as guarantor to any foreign loan or contractual obligations, it means that there has to be a very firm and strong agreement on what happens if the primary party defaults. How does the federal government, where does the federal government, get remedies from? All this has to be done. Look, there's nothing wrong with subnationals engaging in contractual obligation with foreign entities.
Nothing wrong, so far as they play their own part.
These are things we talked about, referred to sometimes as foreign investment, direct foreign investment, because they were going to build, operate, and then at some point transfer. But the conditions just have to be right for the country to enter. Because you see, the balanced side of things is that we also have predators on the international scene
exactly.
who go to different undeveloped countries to carry out this kind of heinous practice and rip them off. Recall the story that Kunjiwala told in her book about a company that had no capacity, no knowledge at all in the field, that they were coming to Nigeria to sell. And they wanted to, I think, rebuild part of our ports for a huge amount of money.
Mm-hmm.
But they took Kunjiwala, to pry into their affairs and found out that they didn't have the capacity to do what they wanted to do.
And they could not have been working alone, unfortunately.
Again, the P&ID issue focuses on the same kind of issue, where you have some low-level officers in government, setting aside some basic conditions that should have been contained in that agreement for these guys to come in. And when they didn't fulfill their obligations, the same people did not cancel this contract. They waited until these guys took us to court, and we're almost going to rip off the country of a huge sum of money before the federal government woke up from a deep slumber and I was able to stave it.
Now, what's your sort of read of how this could all pan out? You've just said, and I've heard it said before, that in a situation like this, even if you don't have all of the 75 million odd, even if you were to, talk with them, it's 30 I have, it's 35 I have, it's 40 I have. Because of the situation, they just want to get out of this. Everybody wants to get out of this. They likely would take it. What are the options that are now left? Clearly, we can't pursue the legal option of we are, you need to rule in our favor because we've blown all our chances. I understand from legal commentary I've been hearing that it wasn't just one chance we had.
Yeah, so many chances.
So many chances.
So many opportunities.
Yes.
We could have nipped this in the bud. So I think that there are several options, but I think the most viable, a political diplomatic solution, in which case the federal government will engage the Chinese government and trying to see how the two parties can be brought together to enter into some sort of arrangement where a lesser amount of money than agreed could be paid, or they are allowed back to continue with the job. That's one. Now, but the most important thing coming out of this is the fact that we don't operate a system that penalizes those who drop the ball.
It's a very important point.
We don't. Because you see, in some other parts of the world, the two former governors who were involved in this arrangement will be in handcuffs, waiting for trial.
Yeah.
But you see, what we are saying is, how will Ogun State or the federal government pay this money? And there will be no consequences for the guys who entered and terminated this whole thing, creating this problem. So we also need to look at our law enforcement. How do we punish people who mortgage national interests? How do we deal with them so that others can look back and say there'll sure be consequences for this kind of behavior?
You said something. People have their clout. People have their connections. It all started back in Governor Daniel's time. By the time it came on to Governor Amosun, I think the connection is well known between Governor Amosun and former President Buhari. So it is thought in some quarters, rightly or wrongly, that was a kind of a leverage that allowed him to do what he did at the time. Even though he's, as you know, he's busy, sort of, well, the way papers put it is that he's broken his silence on the matter.
Well, he doesn't have a choice but to speak to the issue. And also, you must also factor in the toxic relationship between the two men, Gbenga and Amosun. They were great friends But along the line, they went their separate ways. And so for Amosun, at the time he took over from Gbenga Daniels, probably felt that this was a project of the previous government. It has nothing to do with my administration.
Yes.
So there was no attachment. And that's where we have a big problem in this country. Government is a continuum.
It is supposed to be.
You don't even have to like your predecessor or your successor. Whatever is done in the interest of the state has to be preserved. You know? And that is the same approach we are seeing from the current government in Ogun State. They are simply saying, this was done and dusted 12 years ago before we even came into power. But then you have assumed the reins of power.
Of course.
So it behoves you. It's now your responsibility and duty to ensure that the Ogun State people and by extension, the Nigerian people gets a fair shake from what has happened. No, so to just come out and say, oh, you know, it wasn't us, it wasn't me. This happened 12 years before I came. It's not a solution.
Neither is it a defense. Going from that very principle
you
of
already
governance
knew
is a continuum.
From the moment you took over the government, you've inherited the assets and liability of the government. So it's not an excuse to say, oh, but because whether you like it or not, it's had opportunities in the 5 years plus that he's been governor to deal with this issue. And he could have dealt with the issue.
Apart from this whole thing about some governors not wanting to have anything to do with their predecessors, especially if their relationship was, as we say in Nigeria, one kind. If it was one kind, then this is what we have. And as you said, former Governor Amosun, he's feeling, for some reason, he seems to feel that he's blameless in this whole affair.
So,
Governor Daniel.
What are you expecting? He will come out and say, crucify me. I'm the one who caused the problem.
And then there's something else going on between him and Patutomi that people are saying, is this not a red herring? Which one is this one you're bringing to this?
So the argument between him and Patutomi was that Pat had brought some investors into Ogun State. And as a requirement, they were made to pay a certain amount of money. But at some point, the Ogun State government was not moving forward with the agreement. And so there was a need to get their funds back. Pat said that he traveled, he went to Abeokuta, met with the governor, and in fact, they traveled back to Lagos together. And the governor asked him to write a letter for refund of some part of the money, which he did, and they got. And then the balance, he never got it. So he felt that what happened, what is happening to Ogun State now, and by extension the federal government, is justified. That there's a track record with Ogun State when it comes to not honoring...
Which is a bit of bad blood again.
Yes. But
because from the point of view of the governor, Patutomi was trying to pull a fast one on him.
Yeah, but he said, in fact, he said the government before him blacklisted Patutomi.
Yes.
And Patutomi said, we're not even whitelisted, not to talk of being blacklisted by the same government. So, but you see, in a situation where everybody is speaking the fact or the truth, as they all claim, just know that somewhere along the line, the truth is buried.
Of course.
Yes.
Of course, it has to be.
And the reason why, they are not coming forward with all this kind of the exact facts so that Nigerians can distill them is just because they are not proud of some of the things that happened on the ground.
That happened.
Yeah.
I mean, it stands, quite frankly, that aspect of it stands to reason. That...
Can I tell you something, sir?
Sure.
You know that we're talking about foreigners now, but you need to know the number of Nigerians who have dealt with previous governments by way of contract execution or consultancy and all that, who have not been paid just because the current governor is quarreling with his predecessor, or he believes that what ought to come out of that job had come out and gone to the former person. So why do I have to inherit that burden and pay?
But
and when these guys go
come out of these public jobs,
and when these guys go to court against the state, do you understand? Judgment is given even against the state,
yes,
but they are not able to execute the judgment. So they go cap in hands, trying to look for big political heavyweights in the state or those that are connected to the governor to beg, even to be paid some money at discounted rate. You see, but these guys knew, and that was why they terminated their lawsuit in Nigeria and went abroad.
Yeah, because they saw that we're not at this rate, we're not going to get anything out of it.
So that's it.
Well, as we wait for the calls to come in, because this matter has been on the air for a while, people with legal luminaries like your good self have been commenting on it, and quite frankly, the essence of what has been said is what you've said in this little time. But it now remains for us to maybe explore the fallout of this kind of a thing, the matters that arise from it. But let's just take a quick break so that we can be uninterrupted with both our phone calls and the continuation of the conversation in studio. Stay with us, please. We'll be right back.
Good morning, Marina Station and all the passengers. Efficient, it's comfortable.
This development will go a long way in reducing congestion and emission.
The trains are a long-term solution to Lagos traffic challenges.
This is where we take the final, decisions on policies, programs of government that will have to ensure that, the narration of Lagos as a PLC is taken very, very seriously.
This is a major pedestrian bridge linking Oyingo here to Apapa Road over there.
With this overpass, we are providing what we call a permanent solution.
This place is one of the most dangerous areas at the biosecurity environment.
This can go into the news and every crumbs of your neighborhood.
Our goal is to remain as Africa's model megacity, to move our GDP from the 5-6 position to the 3rd position, and we believe is achievable with all the commitments we have.
Explore the city of Lagos, where dreams are made and possibilities are endless. Amadedoja Salamadini. I live in Lagos, inside Lagos.
Okay, welcome back. Our guest is Curtis Ajigba, lawyer and public affairs analyst. We're looking at the whole ruckus between the Chinese firm and, Nigeria, because ultimately it was an Ogun State ball, but Nigeria guaranteed it, and here we are now. And quite frankly, it's not looking good. Nigeria, it's like it's taking one on the nose. Very, very embarrassing. You don't need to be any kind of a forensic analyst, I beg your pardon. You don't need to be a forensic analyst to know that the ball was dropped multiple times. But the big issue, and I think that's important for going forward, is that nothing seems to, it doesn't appear that anything is going to be done going by previous antecedents. It doesn't look like anything will happen. There are those who are being quite harsh. Maybe we don't know enough about it from the outside, who are saying that, and you mentioned that, the 2 governors involved before this 3rd one, former Governor Daniel, he's a distinguished senator now. Very little is being said about the matter. And then
his successor is also a senator.
His successor is also a senator. And it just sort of beggars belief. So you don't really know.
And the current one may also end up in the Senate.
We don't know the ambitions.
I'm prophesying now.
We don't know the ambitions of Governor Abiodun. So we don't know. But it really is a frustrating thing to this matter about we're not held accountable for our actions. Look, even if it is vicarious liability, even if you didn't do anything, that's what the law is. You are responsible vicariously, and you didn't do anything, yet I was listening to Okwebamu, a US-based Nigerian lawyer, who was also passionate about this, and he says, no heads have rolled, and that's the worrying thing.
And none will roll.
None is likely to roll.
No. What is going to happen is that they'll be paid. Because right now, as at last night, they have filed suits in 8 jurisdictions.
Yes. So it looks anywhere we turn.
In Canada, in Turkey, in Bahamas, and so many of them. So we have to keep defending these actions. Wherever they find assets of the federal government, they're going to get a court order to impound pending when the payment is made. So at some point, there's going to be a solution. But I can assure you, no heads will roll. Okay? Because we are a system whereby, and I think Nigeria is the only country that I know, because this is my own country, that when people fail in certain positions, they are promoted to higher positions. So sort of like rewarding incompetence and failure. Do you understand?
I do.
Look at our political horizon. Somebody asked me some time ago, he said, why is it that in spite of the fact that we had changes in our government, the outcome largely remains the same for the citizens? I said, the reason is because the core of your political system has remained the same. All that has been happening is that we've had some upward mobility from down below, but the same people, the same knowledge, the same mental situation, the same approach to solving problems. So you have not injected new ideas. Just like you take our budget, and sometimes you look at the budget, the current budget, and the last year budget, and the only significant change will be the year 2023 and 2024. If you go to the presidential villa's budget, you see how all the typewriters or the computers there will be replaced. Hey. When it comes to the small guys, any wonder that the EFCC has got a successful record of prosecuting Yahoo boys by almost 90-something%. But when it comes to the powerful guys in politics, it's not up to 10%.
But why is that? Because we're using the law, and this is the question. It's almost like a rhetorical question. I know that I'm asking.
So you have seemingly 2 judicial systems. One that is very efficient when it comes to the weak, the lost, and the vulnerable. And then you have another one that is weak when it comes to the powerful and the rich and the influential. Because first and foremost, they have the resources. They can hire big lawyers. They can go through big political heavyweight who can go out and influence and lobby in our different institutions. They have the power and the wherewithal to ensure that the prosecution does not move forward. You know, they can challenge just a ruling on a small part of the case and take it all the way to the Supreme Court. And then it comes back again, de novo, to start all over. So this is what is happening.
You know, okay, look, take the Tinubu administration. It campaigned on an agenda of new hope.
Renewed hope.
Renewed hope.
Yes.
So one would have been naive to have assumed then that this renewed hope, this will also encompass this kind of thing as well, where justice will be blindfolded. It doesn't care. Present me with the facts and let me weigh them against the law and then make the correct legal pronouncement. Is that something that we, and now I know that we're shifting away from the subject of our conversation, but it's also related. Is that something that we can't really think of in this country, that it can be done? That justice, lady justice, is that what is that?
It's supposed to be blind.
Supposed to be blind.
Yes.
Blindfolded. So that she's not looking at your face. She's not looking at your countenance. She doesn't want to know your color, your religion, or anything. What are the facts of the case? And where is the law? Put them together. That's not going to happen in Nigeria, right?
So, you know, in every trial, there's this assumption that the parties before the judge are the ones on trial. No, that's not correct. It is the judge that is on trial because the parties know the truth. It is the judge who doesn't know the truth.
Yeah.
And so you have a situation where the judge can be influenced with all kind of things. Now, talking about renew hope, there has to be an assumption that there was hope in the first place before you can renew it. And a lot of people we argued that they didn't see any hope, not to talk of renewing it. But you must also understand that the country is a system, and it's been entrenched for a very long time. Now, no new government is going to come all of a sudden and uproot that system, because the most difficult thing to bat is a cultural change, where you are taking people from point A to point B within a period of time. There will be resistance in the system. But you see, when you have a leadership that is courageous and has got clear vision about what he wants to achieve, that change must happen. This is what I say to people. One of the problems is that leaders don't come with they don't form like a preconceived vision about what they want to achieve first, before they now begin to recruit those who will help them translate the vision into reality. So when they take over political power, then they begin to select people based on political considerations.
So it's not like a prepared team.
Yes. And then what most of these guys make up for is that they all want to be in the good books of the president. They cannot even hold a press conference where they will speak to the fact that certain things were done based on their initiatives. You will hear them say, with the cooperation or the direction of the president. Some of these things the president don't know anything about. But if the president is all knowing and all doing,
but
it doesn't need you.
Yeah, exactly. But it is the form. You hear it in government, in Lagos State. Anybody sits down with you, he's going to be given credit.
It's the governor, everything about the governor.
Thank you because of the assistance of the governor, the support of the governor, the initiative of the governor, and it works like that for the president as well. So this also is a cultural system. Now, nothing is going to change that, I don't think. It is a form that we have.
Yeah, and you know the problem is that
we have.
People appear to fight harder for retaining their position than accomplishing things that will help the president and the country. Okay, so even when they say that things are not going right or things are wrong, they cannot bring themselves to speak to the president about it. Let me tell you a funny story. The former Nigerian president attended the African Summit in London, and he was dominating the talks. He wouldn't allow other African leaders to speak and all that. And then some of his aides, led by a former Senate president, decided that it was time to go to the president and tell him what they have observed in the course of that summit. And so they said they were going to tell him to please allow others to speak. He should stop dominating the whole conversation. You know, that there was this high resentment by other African leaders against him. So when they got to the hotel, he expected that his colleagues who had agreed with him that they were going to talk to the president will step forward. He tried to raise the issue, and nobody spoke. So, rather, he observed that they all joined in praising the president. Oh, the locomotive of West African trade. Oh, without you, Africa will know where to do. So,
but that happens everywhere in our society.
No, not
even in companies.
Well, I think it's unique to us to some extent.
Yes.
Because I was reading this book by George Stephanopoulos, The Situation Room, you know, president in crisis. He made mention of the current Secretary of State, Tony Blinken. Of course, and then when I saw that picture on the raid on Osama bin Laden, you will notice that the current Secretary of State was an Undersecretary of State in that picture when Obama was president. So you see this continuity. And the one said that the Achilles heels of democracies all over the world is that when you have a leader that is too strong, that those around him are so scared of telling him the truth. it never works well.
And people and leaders need to be strong.
Yes.
Those that are their people need to keep them strong.
Yes.
And so they're busy intimidating the whole setup, although that is not the word that is being used. It's supposed to be respect, it's supposed to be reverence, it's supposed to be, not interfering with the leadership, taking your cue and all of that.
I don't expect a minister to walk to the president and be rude to him.
Of course not.
That's not allowed. But I expect the minister to be able to speak to Mr. President with candor, with faith and conviction that he is doing the right thing by telling Mr. President the true situation of things. The late Senator John McCain said, courage is not the absence of fears, but your capacity to act in spite of your fears. Yes, you run a risk.
Of course.
In this part of the world of Mr. President saying,
there's so much on the
he's
line.
always the one bearing bad news. He's always the one, not praising me and all that. But deep down, he understands. You understand? Like now, who does not know today in this country as we speak that things are not okay? With majority of our citizens, things are not okay. Right? I don't know if you fall into that category, but the reality is that when you hear some of these top government functionaries speak, they tell you about how things are going so well. And that's the message Mr. President gets.
Well, not necessarily that it's going so well, but there are challenges that are being assiduously addressed. And so from their point of view, that is the truism that they know.
Well, yes, but look, you can sound aspirational, but you don't detach from the reality.
Okay.
So we are at point A.
But in fairness, you remember that Mr. President himself will say that I am aware. The president tells us that I feel your pain.
I understand that.
So at least that much is getting through to him.
Yeah, but you know what? You can comfort people. You can acknowledge their pains. But beyond that, they want to see action on your part.
Yeah.
That will act as a relief to that pains. So when you hear about the government saying we're giving out 570 billion hardship allowance or hardship assistance, and then you hear some governors coming out to say we did not receive any money. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Or that the money was it wasn't a grant from
it wasn't a grant. It was from a grant from World Bank, and it started in the last administration. So you see this deficit of trust in what the people should be believing.
To be able to speak, well, I think that other trite expression, speaking truth to power. To speak truth to power, whether from within the internal corridors of power or even close to it, it's tantamount to bringing on something of a sort of a revolution. And they say without that, things will not change.
It's a risky endeavor in our part of the world.
Yeah.
But then, if you are a man of conviction, you don't have to go insulting anybody. Okay, look at what is happening in Ogun State. Okay? If you had an attorney general of the state, and we are not privy to the undercurrent, but if there was an attorney general of Ogun State who could walk to the governor and say, Mr. Governor, this is going to be an embarrassing situation. If we don't do something about it now, or even probably threaten to quit the job if nothing is done about this, because this is going to blow back in the future.
Yeah, but people,
But you will not have people in this part of the world who will take that risk.
And that is why, for example, unfortunately, you have cases of Nigerian public officials tried within the country, according to the Nigerian system, and are discharged, acquitted, and then let a foreign jurisdiction get hold of that same person with those same charges. And some of them are still serving their sentences now, a sentence that could not have been imposed. Not only that, in the case of, in one case, former President Obasanjo actually wrote to the UK pleading on behalf of the person that, look, I can vouch for him. So it begins to show you how that matter might have gone had that matter been wholly here.
So to buttress your point, a former governor in this country was discharged of 53 charges.
Yes.
By a court in Nigeria because he couldn't find any evidence to buttress or to support those charges. That same governor, former governor, went to London, was arrested, and on 3 count charges. 3 out of those 53, he got convicted and was jailed. So that, that speaks clearly to the difference
it does.
in the strength and character of the judicial system that we have. I don't know if you have seen a video that is trending from retired Supreme Court Justice Auta, where she talked about the corruption in the judicial system, vis-a-vis the registry of the court, the way the judges emerge right now in the country. You know, and she talked about the fact that after the Supreme Court gave judgment, they removed former Governor Ngige and brought in Peter Obi. But the political class just realized, oh, so the court is this powerful. The court can make anybody governor. The court can remove someone from being governor and all that. And so this quest for trying to get people, their sons and daughters and friends and people they could use into the judicial system started. Now, the last swearing of some justices of the Court of Appeal, you saw how it turned to a political gathering. All politicians of note were present there for their swearing-in. And Professor Chidi Odinkalu said they were there because they were paying forward to these justices to say, listen, the day you were sworn in, I was there. Go back and look at those pictures. So we belong to one another. I need your help. So the president has his job cut out for him.
Well, these are very, very subtle. I understand what you're saying.
He has to break up the system completely. Look, it's not going to be...
In fairness, everybody does that. I think, for instance, when it comes to the time of the U.S. president to nominate justices of the Supreme Court, they tend to look for justices that they know have a particular bias, framework. When I say, maybe bias is not quite the word to use, but leaning.
Yeah, but that's peculiar to the U.S. I mean, justice, like you said, should be blind and should not have political leaning. But in the United States, you have justices who are conservatives or liberal in values. And so if you are the president and you are a conservative, you'll be looking for conservative judges. Like you saw how Trump put 3 justices on the court, you know, from Neil Gorsuch, Amy Barrett Conner, and then the other guy that had problem during his clearance. So
the name escapes me now.
Yeah, and all of them, of course, they must come with specific value system. They must be conservatives. They must believe in small government. They must be opposed to abortion rights and all that. And that was how they were able to throw out Roe v. Wade.
Yes.
You know, one had been law in America for 50 years. And when it was time for Biden, he had to look for Ketanji Brown, you know, because he believes in our own value system. But that's not what we have in this country. What we have here is that the justices are appointed strictly on a quota system and on seniority, you know. And that's why they are also very careful. Since the process that gets them to where they want to go is a political process, they also don't want to do anything that constitutes a risk for them at the lower court system. Because when you are constantly going against the government in your rulings and judgments, chances that you will rise to the top is very slim.
And so all of these layers, all of these subtle layers that you've been speaking about, they've all come together to contribute to the situation that we have on ground now.
Yes.
And most especially, you said something in there that I think a lot of people will be able to relate to. Clearly, we're not hearing the truth of where the fault lies in this whole disgraceful affair of the presidential jets because the truth cannot be spoken. People are not proud of some things that happened, either between the first governor to the second governor and even to the third governor, all of whom are going to have knowledge, inside knowledge, but it is not being expressed.
Yeah, but one other thing that stood out from all this is the confirmation that we bought a new jet, in spite of the fact that government denied. You remember when the story broke, I think by Sahara reporters, that the country struggling with economic woes, the country where the leadership is calling on the people to make sacrifice, has just bought another aircraft. They said, no, it wasn't true. Everybody kept quiet. But again, this has shined the light on that issue. That jet happened to be one of the three that was temporarily confiscated. And the information available that was released so that they can take the president to, and hopefully, like we said, the president will be able to rally Ogun State and all the people that are involved to try and find a solution. Because as you said,
it will be paid. The debt will be paid.
Of course. I heard that two of the former governors who were involved in this matter said they will support the federal government to ensure that whatever it needs to do gets done. And I jokingly said to my friend who told me that, I say, maybe they will go to a magistrate court in Ogun State, get an order of court to say that the debt does not exist. Because they had the opportunity to have done everything they could.
Yeah, but they didn't.
They didn't.
And as you said, unfortunately, it is also said, all of these things are quite embarrassing. It is often said that this last-minute syndrome, even when we're preparing
lastminute.com.
Yes, lastminute.com.
That's
preparing for
we're very strong there. Yeah. Very strong.
Well, thank you very much, Curtis. Curtis Adigba, legal practitioner and public affairs analyst. And just looking at this, so matters that are arising and some of the aspects of this thing, not all of which can be, quite frankly, spoken about plainly. Simply because you don't know, you won't be able to know. So we've got to leave it where it is. Thank you very much for being with us.
Thank you
this
for having me.
And please join us tomorrow for a fresh edition. I am Yori Folarin. Bye-bye for now.